Good morning. Welcome to Community Voice. I'm your host, Keith Parris. I want to thank everybody for joining us this morning. Good morning, Debo. Good morning, Carby. Good morning, Michelle. Good morning, everybody's here. Phone lines open 414-444-5250, 414-444-5250. How did that voice get so high when I said 50? 50.
Yeah, the gang's all here, man. Yeah.
Everybody
Little
here.
dude here. Little dude.
Okay.
Carby, I'm talking about Carby, man. Don't start no stuff.
I didn't. So today, Thursday, I don't know, we'll do throwback, but a couple of things we'll talk about today. Obviously, we want to talk about the state of the race, where we are. I got up early this morning, and as I'm sitting there drinking my coffee on the veranda, veranda, that's a porch. I went through the polling numbers this morning. There's been some interesting things. But let me, Michelle had alluded to on her program that the Trump people were maybe gun shy, or is that it? Is it gun shy when you had a scare?
Mm-hmm.
And so they're not. Well, one, the Secret Service is really strongly urging that they do not do outdoor events, though the event for Vice President Harris was outside, no Claire.
Sun everywhere.
Yeah. And this goes back to when Trump was elected, and who was his press secretary that he sent out the lie about the size of the inaugural crowd?
Oh, I can see his little.
He's doing conservative
killed
TV
on Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
I'll come up with it. Go ahead.
Oh, you know who played him? What's her name? Melissa McCarthy. Remember?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
At the press conference.
He actually played him.
Right. But he was talking about crowd size. In 2009, January 2009, when Barack Obama, his inauguration, they said about 1.5 million people there. My sister went. And I remember how cold it was.
Yeah, we were.
But she went, and then the Wanzo sisters, when they took a train down.
Sean Spicer.
They took a train down, and they were we were on WGLB,
Okay.
and they were calling in, giving us live reports
Okay.
on what was going on as their travel. So then you saw the Trump inauguration, and if he had maybe 100,000, well, it could have been more than that, but it was nowhere close to the Obama thing. So he's been talking about his crowd sizes, which kind of gets into something else. And so compare his crowd size. Now, truth be told, they weren't putting Joe Biden in 15,000 seat arenas, right? People would kind of get there if they got there. There was no enthusiasm. So he's doing smaller venues when he would go out and campaign. Trump, now I heard in New Jersey, he said he had 105,000 people in New Jersey. He lied because I saw the rally in the Bronx. He was like, we had 25,000 people. No, you did not. And then the people you had there didn't even live in the Bronx. Right? You imported white people from nearby Westchester County to come into the Bronx. All right. So I'm just going to give you some numbers here. I said yesterday in Eau Claire, 12,000.
Yeah, 12,000 plus.
They did a rally, they being Harris Walls in Detroit at an airplane hangar, 15,000.
Right.
In Philadelphia, 15,000. Atlanta,
Oh, I forgot.
332,000. There's so many people in Atlanta. A lot of people couldn't get in. But Atlanta, at least 15,000. At least. Okay. Donald Trump won. And this is what's really interesting. And I don't know if that's at the state of the race, because I'm going to start talking about some polling numbers after this. It's interesting. Donald Trump kept saying that Joe Biden is hanging out in his basement.
Yes.
He's not out campaigning. They got him in the basement.
Right.
Whenever we're talking about he's in the basement, he doesn't come out. Well, Donald Trump, he was in Philadelphia, same arena that Kamala Harris was at. There were empty seats, and they had to put curtains up to block the empty seats.
Right.
He is not pulling the same crowd in terms of numbers that Kamala Harris is when she goes out to campaign. So I just wanted people to, here's the other thing. What campaign stop did Donald Trump make this week? I'll wait. He hasn't.
Like
Donald Trump is lazy.
None.
He is lazy. And he is 78. And so remember that whole thing where he was showing strength compared to Joe Biden, who was feeble and old? Who's looking old and feeble now?
I mean, one of the things that I think people don't also give credence to is Donald Trump is fat, thick,
round.
And so Joe, who is very slim,
Bald,
and borderline svelte.
Oh, svelte.
I mean, he just, so he looks a lot smaller and maybe more frail. But Donald Trump, like, they confuse some of his youth with how solid he looks because he's fat, because he's wide. But that shot that I put up on my Facebook page of when he got shot or the bullet whizzed by his head and his comb over came back the other way. If that picture of Donald's, like, if I'm Kamala Harris, I'm putting that on an ad.
Yeah.
Because even though it was connected to the assassination attempt, you see that bald spot. He looks more youthful because that hair is being combed over. Let me see. No, that ain't it, bro.
Which one is that?
Carvey showed me a picture of Trump. No. If you want to see the bald spot picture, go to my Facebook page.
They got Mike Tyson with blood coming out his mouth. next to
Look,
Donald Trump's hair.
That's what his hair looked like, Harvey.
Okay.
Look, you ain't ever seen it?
Mike Tyson is a Donald Trump supporter, isn't he?
Exactly. Have you seen this, Debo, on my Facebook page? That's what his hair really looked like up under that comb over.
No.
If dude show this, if this Donald Trump gets shown,
that get out, huh?
all of it is a facade, from the makeup that makes his skin look more lively than it really is, to the comb over hiding that humongous bald spot in the top of his head with baby hair brushed to the front.
Baby hair.
and then you take away, that he's thick. Like, you'll get the idea how old this dude really is, and he has not aged well. But that comb over is fooling people. Hair makes you look a lot younger, in some cases, than you really are. That bald spot is fierce in the top of his head. You seen it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Come on, I don't like to look at it. I hate disaster movies. I hate slashers.
Look, you look good with your hair bald. Debo looks good bald. Everybody can't pull this off.
Yeah.
You do too, Michelle.
You know what? And let me be clear.
No,
I know I do.
You do.
I know I do.
I know I'm fine.
He act like his little it means something. It don't mean something. I look good with a low haircut. I know
Michelle,
I do.
I wasn't trying to be
you was trying to. You was
facetious.
gunning.
I was not.
Yes, you were.
I was
You
not
was gunning.
capping. I was not capping.
Oh, now we want to use
Cap or no cap?
Does it? Cap or no cap? All right. So again, the state of now let me do this disclaimer. I understand that when we start talking about polling, that it depends. Everybody's going back to 2016. What happened in 2016? We had Hillary Clinton up, and in some instances she was at or above the margin of error. What happened? And so pollsters really had to take a new look and go in and really micro divide up these groups, right? And so when I get to Wisconsin, you're going to hear me use two different types of voters, likely voters and registered voters. Real quickly, just for sake of definition, a likely voter is a person who usually participates in the process. A registered voter could be a person who participates. It could be a person who doesn't, but they're on the voter rolls, okay? So when you're looking at it, and I think Michelle could tell you this, if her folks are sitting up and they're getting ready to do a strategy, the people that they're going to concentrate on first, right, would be the likely voter, because that's the person who might actually show up to vote. Now, you can spend time with registered voters. You can spend time trying to register people to vote. But at some point, your resources have to go into the people or you have a certain level of confidence they're going to show up and vote. So I say that so when you hear these terms, sometimes they'll be doing polls and you'll hear LV, which is likely voter, RV, which is registered voter. Right now, this is as of Thursday. This is the CNBC poll. I'm going from Real Clear Politics, right, which does a compilation of all the various polling. So from the people that are very progressive, the polling that is sponsored by a partisan group, they do all of this, and then they'll come up with a cumulative average of who's ahead. Okay. As of Thursday, yesterday the 8th, they had Trump up by 2 points. This is CNBC. Now that's interesting because CNBC it's a business, and I'm assuming that people maybe coming in would be more business minded. We didn't talk about it much, if at all. There was a pretty steep drop in the stock market on Monday. I think it dropped by 1,000 points. That was driven by a fairly weak job report and the fear that we're going to be into a recession. So putting pressure on the Feds to drop the interest rates. The Feds put up high interest rates to fight inflation. And we talked about what inflation is. When you have too much money in the economy, money loses value. So now you put the brakes on it, bring down the money supply, money has more value. But at the same time, we're dealing with high prices, right? Now, inflation is down. I think inflation is down to about 3%. But at one point, inflation was it pretty near double digits. It was high.
Right.
So when people, now we can have this macroeconomic conversation about the stock market, interest rates, all that. But what people are real concerned with is when I go in the store and deal with sticker shock when I go into the store. Those are real issues for real people. And so with the CNBC poll, I can see that business. Okay. But when you go with the Economist, right now, Harris is at 45%. Trump is at 43%. She's +2. And this includes Stein and West. Stein is running again?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. General election, Trump, this is the Marquette poll. And this was as of Wednesday. Harris, 52%. Trump, 48%. That's in the state. Yep. That's the Marquette poll. General election, Trump versus Harris, Marquette poll, just gave you that number. The NPR poll done on Tuesday the 6th, NPR, PBS, and Marist University. Harris up by 3 points, 51-48. Now, that 50 number is important. That 50 number is important in politics. If you're at 50 and above, you're in pretty good shape. Right. So 50 is where you want to be, obviously above 50. And at this point in this particular poll, she's at 50%.
Is that why you wore your khakis today?
What's that? I'm geeking out. What's the kid? Who's the guy who does
Steve Kordacki.
Oh, Robin loves Steve Kordacki.
And that's why I said,
he's doing the Olympics.
Yes, I
He's
know.
doing the
I
Olympics.
know. But as I was listening to you roll off all this data, I'm like, and I look down and you got khakis on. I'm like, Steve Kordacki in his khakis. So yeah, so sorry to interrupt, but
no, that's
that
no
came
problem.
to mind.
No problem. So again, +3. This is Monday, August the 5th. This is I&I tip. Harris 46%, Trump 45%. Here's what I'm saying. Now this is on a national level. I'm gonna go and then give you the numbers for Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. The point that Michelle was making about I told people Kamala Harris can talk. She know how to talk. She went to Howard. She know how to talk. And that was a moment, and it was an appropriate moment when you have to go like, okay, you want to talk? Let me talk some. And shut them down. I was so impressed. It was
it was smooth.
Oh my God.
It was smooth.
And she kind of looked. Obama would be really nice. She was kind of going.
But Obama had the moments too when he was just kind of like when he had enough, and he would kind of cock his head just a little bit. He'll look, and his eyes are squint just a bit, like, "For this, what we doing?"
Oh, but you can hear it in that tone. You better go someplace and sit down.
But yeah, because when she started off, because I use that all the time. You know what? I mean, like, there's nothing. You understand where we going?
And she's usually. Yeah, Sonny, but that face turned to stone.
She wasn't playing.
It was just like,
she was like, now you know what?
And a good point. But again, here's why this is, I thought, was significant. When you say the folks who are supportive of Palestine, she was in Michigan,
right?
And in Michigan, it has the highest Middle Eastern population in the country. Mm-hmm. And so, but her point is, you might not like everything that Biden would do, but just think about what Donald Trump would do. Right. And that moment of sobriety. Now, when we were out of West Dallas, there was a heckler, but Secret Service got on him so quick, he was gone. I mean, it was like they looked, they pointed, and then that's when you see the undercover Secret Service guys there that you didn't know was there, just thought was a dude, plain clothes, you thought was a dude. So anyway, the point I'm making is that it is important what happens, but at some point, as you say, okay, I can sit up here, get in my feelings and do da-da-da-da-da-da, but the alternative is worse than me.
Right.
And that's an adult decision we have to make.
I mean, just like Biden making the decision to come out, because he didn't have to.
Right.
He could have drug us all with him because he already had secured the nomination.
Let me ask you a question.
He didn't have to.
But that's interesting. So is it, somebody mentioned, what was it? Something where she didn't mention Joe Biden.
At the first appearance with her in
Walls. Why
somebody said they wish I had, because Claire McCaskill said that on MSNBC. I wish they had mentioned Joe Biden. that basically, just as a sign of deference and respect. But
that's such a boomer moment for me.
but the thing I think, and when Claire said it, I'm like, Claire, while that was the first time the two of them were together,
right.
Kamala has gone to great lengths to be respectful of Biden and gone out of her way to talk about him. So in that moment, this is their show. So and we got to be willing to acknowledge when it's somebody else's show. It's this Keith Parris show. It's their show.
I'm gonna pull up some more polling data. And one of the great things about the New York Times polling data is that you can run, like you can move it.
Yes.
So you can see trends.
Right.
So here's my question. Is it, and it's probably a combination, is it that Kamala Harris, and I don't want y'all to think I'm being disparaging, I'm not, that she's that great? Or was it at this point, Joe Biden was so damaged? Because when you see the polling and you see this enthusiasm for someone that people may or may not know, they certainly don't know Walls, but they may or may not know about her as vice president. We're trying, because remember I told you I kept trying to wrap my head around how do you raise this much money? And these are people who would have given to Biden, but they didn't. So how much of it is, and then how do you do it respectfully if it was Biden and then Harris? And I'll say this real quick. People were saying, man, when she ran in 2020, she was awful. That's the first time she ever ran for president. I could tell you how disastrous it's been for people who run the first time. I said, very few people are Derek Jeter. Very few people are Barack Obama.
Do you really want to say Derek Jeter? But
no, I'm going to say Derek Jeter because Derek Jeter never played minor league baseball.
I'm just saying Derek Jeter, the wife beater. But anyway, go ahead.
Before he was a white beater.
I'm just saying.
No, but I'm saying, very few people were you able to walk. Very few people are Michael Jackson.
Right.
I mean, those are the alphas. Michael Jordan, they're the alphas. So for people, and that's how we look at it.
But like that, what did Michael Jordan say? I got cut from my first basketball team.
Oh man,
I got cut.
Yeah, what that coaching genius.
Basketball. I wonder how LeBron James is doing. He took a crazy hit to the face.
Yeah, they said they saw him left like they don't really need him.
Oh.
But that I was out at National Night Out. Last night at Evangel Church. It was packed. Oh man, a lot of kids.
Where was it?
Evangel Church, 99th and Good Hope.
Okay.
And this little boy came up to me. He said, "Are you Michael Jordan?" Yeah, by that time. So anyway, so what is it? Is it her or is it?
I think it's a combination of the two, but I certainly lean more towards, and I don't like to characterize it as Joe Biden was that bad, but people were that frustrated.
Yeah.
People were that worried. People were that concerned that we were going to lose had he stayed at the top of the ticket. And so then she comes along, and she comes along better than she showed up in 2020.
Oh yeah.
And you can see the confidence. While you were talking, one of her commercials flashed on the screen above your head, and it talked about basically a look towards the future. And when you see her come out, and people don't think that people pay attention to the aesthetics and the optics of these events, but she comes out in this crisp white blazer, crisp white, tee underneath, got her khakis on, non-wrinkled khakis, gotta have non-wrinkled khakis. And she just looks like, like life and vibrancy and hope and sunshine. And then all this amazing sun in the backdrop. And you contrast that to being inside a dark manufacturing plant, people looking like, I'll be glad when I get off today. And I know I was going to have to do this BS. And it's just a very different message that you are sending to people visually about how to feel about these campaigns. So I think that it is definitely people were relieved that they felt like we had a fighting chance again. So I think you hit on it, that it's both things. I think one more than the other, though. I think that people were just relieved that he is not going to be at the top of the ticket.
When we get back from the break, we're going to see a trend, because we're going to be able to show you where they were when it was Biden Harris and where it is now, where it's Harris Walls. and think about this.
And where it's just been before, because Waltz has been in tow 24 hours, like where it was when it was just her.
Yeah, and then
It
Trump
had changed
didn't get a
significantly.
bump from the
No.
convention. She's probably going to get a big bump from the convention if
Oh,
they
so
do it
it's
well.
if they do it well, it's
If they
gonna be
do it
off the
well.
charts.
If they do
like
it
they're
well.
gonna tear up
Because they don't have to worry about drama.
No.
All they have to worry about is performance.
And then
at this
you're
point.
in a city, in a state that's a progressive Democratic state. And so the party, because you was in Milwaukee, but Milwaukee didn't want you here. So it didn't have the vibe. Y'all had to make y'all own fun and y'all own party. Chicago getting ready to set it off.
I hate Chicago. You're listening to Community Voice. Going to take a break. Be right back.
Nicovani is the only place you need to shop
All right, welcome back to Community Voice. And callers, I'm going to get to you. Somebody just wanted to know. I was just trying to set all this up and get because sometimes we'll get the talking and then we'll get off a point and try to get back to it becomes a little bit more difficult. All right. So the backstory everyone knows is that you heard people saying, Nancy Pelosi and others, that they were looking at data. The data that they were looking at was polling, either polling that was done by independent polling companies or polling that was done by the party. And they were seeing trends. Okay. So going back to, let's go back to February of this year. This is the matchup now between Trump and Biden. The matchup between Trump and Biden in the state of Wisconsin, this is the Emerson College poll, had Trump up by 3 points. The Morning Consult had Trump up by 8 points. North Star Opinion Research had Trump up by 1 point. Public policy polling had him up by 1 point. I'm trying to remember when there was the change. Yeah. Oh, the change was done my birthday weekend, right? No. What a week. I'm trying to think when Joe Biden stepped off the ticket. Was it? No, it wasn't my birthday weekend. It could have been the weekend after that. I do remember it was an afternoon, 1:46. So, okay. So the poll prior to that, the July 10th to 11th, Trump by 1 point, public policy polling. This is in the state of Wisconsin. Since the announcement, Harris now is in the Emerson College poll. She goes where she's up by 1 point. All right. So that's a 4 point swing. Beacon Research had her up, Trump up by 1. Morning Consult now has her up by 2. Public opinion poll has her by 2. Marquette Law has her by 1. And RMG Research has her at up 3 points. So look at where we started. Trump was up in one poll by 8 points back in May. He's slipping a lot. What he did not get a bump. Even though he had the assassin, he did not get a bump from the convention. His numbers stayed the same, right? And when you look at it, the trend is now where it's trending Harris.
He came out better to actually get shot.
And he didn't.
No, and I only say that because sometimes the sympathetic piece.
But see, what happened was he got shot. Joe Biden was still the head of the ticket. Mm-hmm. It was the following weekend when Joe Biden stepped back and all that was gone. And I think it came down to, like we said, the lesser two evils. People thinking, well, at least Trump looks like he could survive the term.
Remember what your girl said, which one of whoever 80-some-odd-year-old candidate steps out first will be the one to win.
And that's where the couch came in. You know, these two old white men don't want to vote for any one of them. Just don't go vote at all. That's changed. Caller, welcome to the program. Can I turn the arrow? Caller, welcome to the program.
Hey, Keith.
Good morning.
How y'all doing over there?
We're good, brother.
Good.
Go right ahead.
You know what I don't understand about this inflation?
Go right ahead.
When I know that some people are struggling with food prices. But when I look, Summerfest, State Fair, all these baseball, all these sports arena things, I don't know how to pronounce her name, but I know you spell it SZA. Do you know how to pronounce it?
What's her name?
It's spelled SZA. I want to say SZA or something like that.
Yeah, SZA. Uh-huh.
Guess how much her tickets were selling for?
How much?
$300 a piece.
Oh, yeah.
And when I look at that and I see those concerts are sold out,
mm-hmm.
and I'm watching the sports arenas around the United States, baseball stadiums sold out,
mm-hmm.
Summerfest sold out, well, a lot of people down there, State Fair. Those food prices aren't cheap down there.
Right.
How much you think you pay for a thing of Gatorade?
I mean, it could be at least $3, probably more than that.
Right. How much you think you pay for a pack of them?
Oh, you're talking about if I bought them in the store?
Mm-hmm.
Man, I don't even know because I don't do Gatorade anymore. What is it?
It's about $6 for about an 8-pack.
Right.
How much you pay for ear corn down at the Summerfest?
Oh man, it's called markup. You
so,
in retail, right?
Right. So what I'm saying, Keith, I don't get this inflation stuff.
Well, what it's saying is that when you go to the store, the prices are higher. You notice that.
Of course they are.
You can still afford it, but you notice that they're higher. And I think that that's the psychological effect. Recession means that people won't have jobs, which means they won't have money to go to the store. So you have to balance that between trying to bring inflation down. One of the things is the money supply. At the same time, people know they're still going to keep their price. Some of these prices had everything to do with COVID. You can't tell me that the price of chicken wings should not be dropping because, you know, we ain't in a pandemic anymore. So there's a lot of that out there. I think you might have heard them talking about price gouging and going after people who are price gouging. You know, so I think that's it. But you're right. But for some people, they notice it. If you're in a better situation, you notice it, but you're not on the verge of eviction. There are some folks who it really is a real struggle at this point to figure out what they're going to do. I don't know what that is in terms of percentage of Americans. I also know that even when you go and ask Americans when you're doing opinion polling, what is the number one issue? The economy. It's always the pocketbook. What is James Carville famous for saying? It's the economy, stupid. Right?
But I think they use that as an excuse to scare people. That's where I'm trying to go with this.
Well,
because when the prices first started going up, and me and my brother was going back and forth about this. Wasn't it when they had that embargo where those ships had at the docks or something? Didn't it start there? My brother said it started with COVID. I'm like, no, it didn't. It started when they couldn't when those ships got blocked in.
It started with COVID because there were supply chain issues. But at the same time, what America did was, there's John Maynard Keynes, who is an economist. His theory is that when there's an economic crisis or threat, the government should pump money into the economy. COVID disrupted the economy. There is no question that it did. One of the amazing things about COVID, you don't even think, there was a brother I know who's down at the University of Missouri. He's head of one of the business schools down there. And we were calling to talk about supply chains because that's what he does. That's his background. He can tell you at UWM, he taught a whole thing on supply chain. So we were just talking about supply chain. And then was it Wuhan, that city in China? And we were hearing that there was a backup. We had no clue because I talked to him in March that it was going to be COVID. So it did have an impact on it. With cars right now, wasn't there a problem with the microchips that they needed to run the computers?
Yeah,
they couldn't get the parts. And then
that's what I was talking about.
Right. And then when you looked at used cars during COVID, if you had a car you wanted to sell used car, you're going to make some money because they weren't manufacturing the same number of new cars. People really wanted cars. So yeah, I think it's real. But sticker shock is real. Let me give you an example of sticker shock.
How much of this is just plain greed though, Keith? I was reading this report.
Greed in terms of the consumers, or greed in terms of the business people?
With the business people, because typically, I was reading this report. They say that your profit margins could go anywhere from 12 to 15%, 17 at the most, right?
Right.
Now they're saying that these companies, their profit margins are all the way up to 75% now. So how much of that is just pure greed, Keith?
That's what drives capitalism.
Now, typically, a typical family now of 4, let's say you try and go to McDonald's. You know how much it's almost costing you now?
Right.
Almost $40 to go to McDonald's for your family.
But McDonald's.
I'll use your favorite restaurant. I'll use your favorite restaurant.
Which one?
Speed Queen.
Yeah.
You see the portion size containers that they give you now?
Yeah.
It's shrunk, right?
Yeah, but
and they're charging you more money too now, right?
Right, but that's
so not only are they giving you less food, they're charging you more money.
Right, but that's kind of where we are in terms of the economy. Now I won't say greed, people trying to make, and then different people have different, there's different costs that could affect their profit margin and their bottom line. You look at the number, is it Family Dollar or Dollar Generals? Dollar Generals that's going out of business, right? Not because of their prices, it was because of theft. So there's all these things that then impact on the cost of you operating. Is there greed operating? Greed has been operating since we got here on day one. But I agree with that. But the whole inflation thing is real. So what we don't want to see.
I contributed to greed more so than inflation.
Well, I mean, but the greed is driving the inflation. That's what's driving the prices.
Any cup of McDonald's soda was what? $1, right?
Right.
How much is it now?
I don't know. I don't buy soda.
$1.80.
Okay.
So a lot of this is driven by.
But that dollar was artificially low because there's a way that McDonald's, it's a crazy formula about this is why you can get a cup of soda, like you can get the biggest one at the same price as the smallest one, right? There's something in how they're able to calculate how they make money from that. I didn't understand that. Now where they begin to lose money, depending on where they are, is when they get the free refills, right?
So I'm gonna give you a hustle move, okay?
Okay.
Let's say you down the block and you selling your stuff for $75. I'm around the corner and I'm selling my stuff for $50. Who you think gonna get the business?
$50.
Okay.
If it's the same, the same product.
Right.
Right.
The quality is good. So,
right.
Keith, it's just about greed. This guy came on TV one day, and I was listening to him. He was backing Republicans, and he said that we can help the Democrats lose because us as Republicans that run these companies, we could drive up our prices. And I'm like, that won't work. But yeah, that's what they're doing. So they're driving up their prices on purpose to do that, Keith.
And you know what? So, remember, I just mentioned Keynes. The opposite of Keynes is Milton Friedman, who believes in absolute free markets, right? So with Milton Friedman, he believes that, it is survival of the fittest in business. One of the side effects of the stimulus packages that was put into the economy was for some like restaurants, it kept them open, but then people didn't come once restrictions were ended. So they had the artificial money where they could lose, they didn't have to worry about people coming in the restaurant as much. They were still doing carry out. But then when they went fully staffed, because part of the PPP loan requirement is that it has to be something like 80+% of your staff has to be retained, right? In order for you just to get that basically free. You just pay the interest on it. And so it was a lot of things. Appreciate you, man.
All right.
All right. Yes, sir. Caller, welcome to the program.
Shalom.
Hey, what's happening?
Just want to comment on your perspective of Trump and the polling information.
Mm-hmm.
I thought George's comments were interesting too, though. But keep in mind, supply and demand, as you said,
mm-hmm.
controls all of that. So you got the product, you can pretty much set the price for the marketplace for that particular product if people want it.
Mm-hmm.
Go to go to a sporting event and want the convenience of a hot dog there, you pay $12 for it.
Oh man.
Oh
man.
Yeah.
Oh dude.
Yeah.
I went to I didn't get to say it with George. It's sticker shock when you visit bigger cities. When you go to Chicago, the price is maybe $3 to $4 higher in things than you would pay here in Milwaukee, right?
Yeah.
We went to a baseball game at Yankee Stadium. Man.
Yeah.
What it cost in New York, in the Bronx. Yep. It was, what did I pay? It was for was it something like $12, $15 for a beer?
For a beer?
For a beer. I mean, hot dogs would like 10, 12 bucks. Popcorn. Yeah.
Yeah. Popcorn at a movie.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So again, it's the supply and demand for the convenience of being in that venue having what you want.
But you know
Right.
what? You can price yourself out the market. So
Yeah, you can.
Disney
You can.
Disney World is dropping its prices because
Yeah.
now it's pushing up against a new reality where people are going like, am I going to save money to go to Disney? Or there's some more immediate things I need to take care of. And so now you're seeing with Disney, because the cost of going to that amusement park, I don't know what it costs to go into Great America, but the cost, man, that is, and that
Right.
the last time I was near Disney, maybe 10 years ago, longer than that, and it was expensive. You know, people probably taking out loans to go to Disney.
Yeah. Well, you know, I agree with him. Inflation played a part in it. I think the COVID played a part in it.
Big part in it.
Greed is playing a part in it. But I do think people are going to adjust and recognize they're being taken advantage of and, you know, start backing up on a lot of this stuff that.
And again, another observation, what would you rather have, inflation or recession?
Well, yeah.
I mean, if you're just looking at it from the economy, and I'm saying for people like myself, I would not be as impacted by a recession because I'm not in an active full-time employment situation, right? But people who are in industries that could then have to downsize, now you're talking about people losing their job and now the unemployment rate is going to go up. That's a totally different piece. So,
well, they talked about wages rising. You know, the wages at McDonald's have risen slightly. I don't know what those are. But that cost is going to be affected in the.
And the thing about McDonald's raising their wages is the demand for labor. It still is. Right. I think the last report I remember reading that there was 3 million more jobs than people who would be part, you know, currently. So there's 3 million jobs out there. Now, the type of jobs that they are, and then you see different industries being hit by things. And so people are still doing layoffs.
Right. Well, yeah, the whole hospitality and restaurant sector, you know, the jobs are available there. But then, you know, they got to raise their wages in order to get people to come and do those jobs now. So, and that's where this whole argument about robots and robotics is coming into play. But, you know, back to just the thought, just to share, I think that the bump for Harris has a lot to do with the fact that she has brought energy, that she's younger, and that and that
that's what I was going to say. She ain't old.
Oh yeah. Oh well, you know. But you think about the two people that were the option, right? And society, I think our country at large is pretty much of the opinion that, you know, we tired of having these old white men running things and thinking they're the only ones who can do it. And I think that, you know, the advancement of man, of humanity, if you will, of our progression has gotten to the place where we're like, no, you know, that's an old idea. And when she was put to the front of the ticket, it gave people a reason to vote now. It gave people a reason to re-engage the, you know, electoral process. It's giving people a reason to have some hope, like Obama brought to the, you know, to the whole, you know, election representative. I mean, all of that stuff that they put out there to be what we use to select our governors, those that govern the country. And, you know, Trump he's old too, you know, and then he's dangerous, right? People realize that this man is a danger. That ain't totally escaping people, but it's like, what other choice did you have when you look at Biden? And he was feeble. I mean, just to be honest, the man wasn't what he was when he was Barack's vice president.
Right.
You know,
or even what he was when he won in 20.
Right. I think he still was a better choice than Trump, because Trump was dangerous. Trump is dangerous to what we've come accustomed to having, right? The privileges, the ability to argue for the things, to petition the government, just in a nutshell, to be able to have that option to petition the government when something goes wrong.
Well, remember, I was saying, and this is kind of where you are, you and I, George, the folks here who, we are in that group called highly likely voters. Okay. And so, yes, we see the existential threat that Donald Trump represents, right?
Right.
There are other people who you see the Donald Trump thing and you go like, oh, okay, well, he is what he is, and we can take advantage of that. Here's that base. I guess the question I'm having with the polling is, and maybe we're beyond that with Barack Obama. You remember the thing? Who was the brother? The Bradley effect. You remember this whole term, the Bradley effect, when it comes to polling, and what the Bradley effect was. He was former mayor. I cannot think of Mayor Bradley's first name. Ran for governor in California, and all these people say, "Yeah, we're gonna vote for him." Huh?
Bill Bradley.
No, Bill Bradley was the senator.
He was in New York.
Yeah, he was the Nick. Yeah, but yeah, we're gonna vote for him. I don't have a problem voting for a black man. They go in the polls and he loses badly. Okay, because, and I know this as a pollster, people will lie to pollsters. That's why pollsters now ask you the same question 3 different ways to make sure that they're getting the most accurate answer when it comes. Because if you ask a question that people might feel like, oh, I should feel a certain way, and I don't want to be that person who feels that way, then I'm going to go in and go, of course, I'm going to vote for a black person. Of course, I don't have a problem with that. They do. But they lied to the pollsters. I'm thinking now when you look at it, I don't know if there's going to be a Bradley effect because we saw what happened with Barack Obama, which now gets us to likely voters. And I gave you the numbers of likely voters who are supporting Harris over Trump.
Okay.
Now the issue becomes that other universe of voters, the registered voters. And you know who was included in that registered voter class? The couch. So when you're looking at how the numbers are trending, Trump should have gotten maybe a 2 to 3 point bump. He got like a 2-point bump. Biden didn't drop until we saw him. Well, it was right after the debate. And that's where Biden really took the hit in the polls, after the debate. It became obvious even before, but now we look, this is an old man. And this is not an attack on the elderly. I am part of the elderly class. But what I'm saying is, for people, especially younger people, they're going, this is an old dude. So
you have the two ends of the baby boomer generation, if you will.
Yeah.
And Harris, right, but you're on one end, and Biden and Trump are on the other end. And so I think people still want that experience with the
Craig, do this for me, man.
The academic
I'm gonna ask you. I can hold him over. I'm gonna ask you to hold over because I want to hear what you're saying. You're listening to Community Voice. The phone line's open 414-444-5250, 414-444-5250. We're gonna take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Tickets are on sale now for the 5th Annual Fresh Coast Jazz Festival featuring the incomparable Boney James, 12-time Grammy nominee Kirk Whalum, Kim Scott, and a host of chart-topping smooth jazz stars. Tickets start at just $69.50. Milwaukee's world-class jazz festival is back August 22nd through 24th, 2024. For tickets and info, visit PabstTheaterGroup.com or FreshCoastJazz.com.
Join the Wisconsin Black Chamber of Commerce every third Thursday at 10 a.m. inside Community Voice with Keith Parris for the Black Chamber Moment. Tune in as we discuss business, networking, and money as we make Black people the largest employer of Black people here on 860 WNOV and 106.5 FM.
Hi, this is Spencer Coggs, and I want to tell you about my friend, Senator Dora Drake. Senator Dora Drake is working to ensure that there are real consequences for reckless driving, not just a slap on the wrist. Senator Dora Drake expanded victim protective services to help those impacted by crime. And Senator Dora Drake will strengthen gun background checks and red flag laws to keep guns out of the hands of criminals. Join me in supporting your Senator Dora Drake in the Democratic primary August 13th. Paid for by friends of Dora Drake.
Great impressions will exceed your expectations. Great impressions, perceptions, everything. For over 26 years, Great Impressions has been your one-stop shop for all your graphics and printing needs. On the corner of 54th and Burleigh, call 414-536-7646. Perceptions, everything.
You're inside Community Voice on WNOV 860 AM and 106.5 FM with your host, Keith Parris.
All right, welcome back to Community Voice. Go ahead, Craig, and thank you for being patient.
Yeah. I'll finish up quickly. But I just think that society, particularly here in the States, with our election process, over the past decade, people have gotten to the place where they start to ask themselves, do I really think that only white men can run this place? And that has to be no. And I think Kamala, connects with the generation that is coming after the boomers. She's part of it. She sort of straddles that fence.
She's at the beginning of, isn't that that's the Gen Xers?
X's? Okay.
Yeah, that's the Gen Xers.
Yeah. She's 60, right?
Right.
So, but she's got the experience. She's shown her ability to operate or function in a role, right? And I just think that people are saying, no, we have to protect what we already have, which is from our perspective as the descendants of Africans here. We have to. We realize that our ancestors have sacrificed a lot to get to this place, and for this country to arrive at this place where the advances we've made are more valuable than putting your faith in somebody who wants to destroy it all with the swipe of a pen. And he is showing that by the things he's doing, talking about taking people back. Nobody wants to go back there. And I think they're willing to put aside what a lot of people may feel is our conservative moral values, not so much put them aside, but say, no, we can still have those things and still progress. We just have to do it, in a way that makes sense instead of going back and just abolishing and abandoning everything because this man is saying that, the LGBTQ thing and the abortion thing is immoral. Well, yeah, okay, I would say that it is, but it ain't worth me giving up my right to petition the government. And I think that's what's drawn a lot of the conservative Republicans from the old party to say, I will vote for Harris because it's too much of a risk to vote for this person who is reckless and dangerous and in every way shown himself to be incompetent to do the job.
It's interesting. There were so many millionaires created and billionaires under the Obama-Biden administration. One of the real things, and look, Republicans, traditional Republicans, business Republicans, what they're looking at, the social issues was pushed upon the Republican Party because it was a minority party. You really wanted to expand the base. How do we expand the base? Ronald Reagan does this. You start including the moral majority, right? So now you have white evangelical, but they on a different wavelength than do business Republicans.
What Reagan was.
Right, yeah. Right. They're on the whole thing about cutting taxes, right? Deregulation. Those are the things that they're looking at. The social issues don't really matter to them. And so, but in order for them to even have a shot at winning the presidency, they need white evangelicals because white evangelicals sat out the elections. Remember, I was talking about the polling. One of the polling points that people, or data points people didn't look at, and it was two groups. There were in 2008, 2012, there were a lot of white evangelicals who did not go vote. They felt like they're not going to vote. Couldn't see themselves voting for a black man. I can't see myself voting because one was a Mormon. Remember, there was a Mormon who ran. And then you had John McCain, who kind of dealt with the same issues as Joe Biden. People perceived him to be old. Okay.
Right.
And so what I'm saying is, so in terms of when you look at it, so when we're looking at polling now, 40,000 people who voted in 2012 in the city of Milwaukee, that number is incredible, did not vote in 20. These are registered eligible voters, did not vote in 2020. The margin of victory for Donald Trump in Wisconsin was 22,000 votes. So now that gets us back to registered voters. How motivated will they be to come out and vote? We know the likely voter is going to show up, but what about those registered voters? And then can either Trump or can Kamala Harris just come out? See, Trump just thought he was going to win this thing. You know, they're already doing a victory lap. That's why he made probably the poorest vice president candidate decision in all time, picking J.D. Vance. I love his book.
I do think that Harris has reinvigorated those people who came out for Barack Obama, particularly when you think about it in terms of those who will vote for their first time, reaching the age of 18.
But think about that, Craig. For those people, 2008, how many years ago was that? That's 16 years ago.
Right. And that's my point.
So they're those folks are 30, 40 years old. Talking about the young people, right? So that's all.
And those are some who were saying, I'm not going to vote because I don't see that energy. But now, prior to Harris coming in, but now I think they get an opportunity to see that again, and their children, or their children who have grown to the age of voting age now, get an opportunity to experience that too. And I think she's getting a swell, a groundswell from that. I also think that, just the fact that all of this conspiracy stuff on the Republican side and QAnon and all that nonsense has soured a lot of people to the voting process. Because when you start thinking about people talking about, Trump being this so-called, sent from God person, when it's like that is nothing but the perpetuation of a lie. If this man is doing all the vile things he's doing, how can he be a representative of your morality? They don't go together. So people sort of back away and say, nah, I'm not with that conspiracy stuff. Even the comments that Meech makes sometimes, that brother, I know that this conspiracy stuff don't hold well with him. Don't give him the enthusiasm to follow the kind of stuff that's coming out of that Republican MAGA movement. And so, a lot of people, particularly our people who are generally conservative, have a conservative heritage here in this country, particularly, those who are saying, I'm not going to vote, that has a lot to do with it for me. And I'll go with this. I just want to make comment about Devontae Mitchell, and the fact that that the Milwaukee County DA's office has come to their senses and decided to issue charges. That is a good thing. And I'm grateful for having had the opportunity to meet that family down at the rally they had the other day, the day before, these charges were issued, because it actually gives me optimism and recognizing that the very things that we have been fighting for the past 12 years, and I still believe are about to come to fruition based on the way things are developing. But to see that Milwaukee County DA's office has said, no, this was wrong. And these people need to be held accountable for putting their hands on a private citizen, right? That's the kind of thing that shows that, it's time out for us just giving people a pass on being ignorant and foolish and reckless with what they doing with everybody. And I'm just grateful that.
And
the
let me
family
say
is able
this:
to see it.
lynching is still against the law. So it's not on the federal
Absolutely.
level, but lynching is still against the law.
Absolutely.
All right, man. Appreciate you.
Family. Y'all be well. Peace.
All right. Caller, welcome to the program.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for your patience.
Had to take a lot of patience.
Yes, sir.
Both of y'all went through a dissertation. Let me get my little prologue in. This is
turn your phone or your radio down. We're getting a little feedback. Thanks. All right, you ready? All right.
I almost don't know how to operate my phone, my radio in my car.
Yeah.
Anyway, a couple of points I wanted to make. That this has a lot to do with the political situation and everything. Interest rates are high, and when the banks went out of business, had the big 208 thing, the government bailed them out, and right now, and it has been for a long time, I don't know if it's the Federal Reserve or whatever, they lend money to the banks. And they lend it at low rate, hoping that they'll pass these low rates on to the consumer. But what has been done is these banks have bought government bonds which yielded more than what they paid for the loan from the Federal Reserve. Another thing, when President Trump allowed people to make multi-billionaires to bring their money back to the states without penalty, with the idea that it would help our market, they bought their own stock.
Mm-hmm.
And more money is being made on anything. Like they were saying, inhaler cost $5 to make,
mm-hmm.
and they were selling them for $600.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever the multi-billionaires get anything that they want to do, they get help from the government, and the government is using taxpayers' money. The rich don't pay taxes, and the poor can't pay taxes. So the middle class is all that there is. And Trump said one thing, he probably didn't even know what he was saying. It's rigged, and it is rigged. But he's projecting, and the rig, he doesn't understand it, but it is rigged. The rich own everything. Take 1290. You familiar with 1290?
The radio station?
The station, yep.
Yeah.
What happened? They bought it out and started paying the Elvis Presley. They didn't have anything to put on. They just took that station from you so you wouldn't have that voice. I'm going to let y'all have a good one, Mr. Dr. Keith Parris.
I know.
And,
you see, you don't call me.
I'm going to get you to convert you to the plutocracy item label, and you have a good one.
Hey, you too. Let me and I thought this was the highest in terms of participation. The three highest elections in terms of participation of voters on a national level is 2016, when some people stayed at home, 2008, Barack Obama's first run, and 2020. But even then, in 2016, 42% of the population participated in this national election. That means that the vast majority of Americans don't even vote in national elections. Now, you would think that would not be the case. We think people show up. But again, everybody remember well, in 2020, we had lines because of COVID. But in 2008, people were literally standing in line all day to cast a vote for Barack Obama. So that whole voter participation piece is something that we have to look at. Caller, welcome to the program. Good morning. Good morning. Oh, caller, welcome to the program.
Yeah, Keith, you're pretty interesting. I'm going to tell you something. I was speaking to somebody, and they were talking about Kamala, and they were saying that the fact that she's got a Jewish husband, and the fact that they're probably going to hurt her in the South. And also, I remember when Hillary ran, and I remember that there were some guys, some black men, who told my cousin they wouldn't vote for a woman, and that was the bottom line. And the fact that she's, I mean, I don't know. I heard what what's his name said about her, but they're the ones who made the racial destinations. I mean, one drop of black makes you black. Is that correct?
That was based on Plessy versus Ferguson. As I remember it, either Mr. Plessy was a very, very fair-skinned descendant of an enslaved African from Louisiana, and they were trying to get to what is, and so they said if you have one drop of black blood, then you're black. So,
and that's always been that way. I mean, you probably have people that you know, and it's been that way forever. Because I have some cousins; they may be fair skinned. Sometimes they look like they're white, but everybody always considers themselves to be black, and everybody always says they're black. And maybe when you look at black families today, we always have somebody. Some families have people that are very dark. Then you have some that are very fair, and some of them are almost fair to the point where they almost look like they're white. But everybody considers them to be black.
Well, I heard a statistic that about 33 million people are, and I don't like to use the term, but I'm going to use the term, of mixed race. So that's 33 million people. That would be about 1/10. That's 1/10 of the American population. And that number is only going to grow. So, and then it gets back to this whole racial designation. This is the ridiculousness of J.D. Vance coming out and Donald Trump coming out saying, well, she was coming out as an Indian, and then when it was convenient for her, it was for her to be black. And I'm going, when was that? Because I remember me and DJ, we were going back and forth about Kamala Harris. He was not a fan back in the day. We were going back and forth. And I kept saying, she went to Howard. She went to Howard. You don't get any blacker than Howard. So where did that come from? That's the problem when you want to use race. See, they're sending all of these. I do believe it will come back to haunt them, because at some point, somebody might have to answer a question about policy. But because of the level of racism, and there are a lot of Republicans who are Republicans who would never be Democrats just because they believe that Republicans promote their white values. So they're down with the Republican Party.
And also, Keith, there's some black people who are not, some black men, I should say. And I think I spoke to you about this before. There's some gender discrimination with black men, too. I would say what they call them, the boomer generation, or whatever they call them, people your age and maybe younger. And,
I'm a boomer. I'm a boomer.
Yeah, boomer generation. Yeah. And maybe the younger ones may not care, but there's a lot of the ones in the 50s, and I mean, they're late, they're in their early 60s, and I mean, they do care.
Well,
and I mean,
it's interesting you say that, because I've been pretty hard on some of the ridiculousness I'm hearing coming out the mouths of some brothers. And but you bring up a great point, and this is something that I needed to be a little bit sensitive to. When you're a black man living in America, it is difficult, right? And we don't always feel appreciated. And so then what do? You might take a different approach where you're saying, okay, if it don't matter, if I don't matter, then it don't matter. And I think that's real. When you that whole age thing is really important, because of just how fragile our masculinity is for both black males and white males. I'm just that Hispanic males. That's where machismo comes from. There's a fragility to our masculinity, and then that is threatened, and it's threatened when we see women, right? That can be threatening for some folks. Not everybody. So I don't want anybody to call it that ain't me. If it ain't you, great. But there are, and that's what gets back to the point you were making. There were some people who would never see themselves voting for a woman. There were some people who never see themselves voting for a black man. Those are kind of real sentiments. They're part of the whole democracy. So even though you might not agree with it, you might not even like it, I might not even like it, it exists. That's the reality. So
one other thing, Keith, that somebody was telling me. Now they had a choice between a man. There was white guys in the South who voted for Barack Obama, who would never vote for a woman, and because it was mainly because he's a man.
Yes,
and he's a man, and she's a woman, and depending on how they were raised, they may be coming from my cousin calls them the old dinosaurs or something. They may believe in a woman's. I remember hearing some guys saying that when Hillary's running, she needs to stay in her place.
Yeah.
And what is she doing? What is she trying to overtake being a man's job?
And then when you get that whole piece, like, well, Donald Trump will say, for example, playing on that thing, hey, Hispanics are coming across the border taking black jobs. And here now, can I be logical here for a moment? I would have to have a job for you to take. That's the case. Come on, take jobs.
Let me say something. I mean, where I live, I haven't seen so much of it, but I do know that their situation is totally different than ours, than Black Americans, the ones coming across the border, because one, a lot of them tend to be fair skin, and a lot of them tend to have hair like white folks. I'm being direct. And I say we have, and I told somebody that black people who live in this country, we have a certain relationship with people in this country that the Hispanics don't have, the Native Americans don't have, because I mean, I say that only because we were slaves,
right?
And that has a whole different context.
And their land was stolen.
Whereas white people, they'll tell you in a minute that at least the ones in the South, a lot of them will tell you that, hey, I'm half Cherokee. I've run into so many of them. I'm half Cherokee. I'm half Greek. I'm half this. I'm half that. Can you carry me over, or I got to go?
Well, I got a couple callers lined up, but yeah, go and make your point real quick, and then we'll go to break.
Oh, okay. I was just saying that they have to. The whites, I mean, they can. They'll say they're Indian blood or something like that, and a lot of the ones from the South. But how many will say they have black ancestry? I mean, that's all I'm trying to say, Keith.
No, I hear you. Unless there's some treaty benefit that they have for black people, trust me. Yeah, my great grandfather was black. So,
right, and that's all I'm trying to say about white people. That's all I'm trying to say.
All right, appreciate you. I'll just say real quickly, if you talk to our indigenous brothers and sisters, they walk here every day, watching people walk on their land that was stolen from them. Yeah, and that would include Hispanic people, from South America. We can talk about the Caribbean. You're listening to Community Voice. The phone lines are open, 414-444-5250, 414-444-5250. Take a break. Be right back. All right, welcome back to Community Voice. Caller, welcome to the program. Good morning. I'm sorry. Sorry, Deacon. That's my bad. I got ahead. Caller, welcome to the program.
Good morning, Mr. Parris.
Good morning, Christopher.
Yes, sir. Thank you for taking my call.
Yes,
Assalamu alaikum to you.
Alaikum salam.
And yes, sir. Thank you. And I just wanted to congratulate you on finally bringing in my big brother, student minister William Muhammad. I'm really appreciative, or I appreciate that. I think that would be the appropriate or grammatically correct way of stating. This is why I called. A lot of times when they're talking about, there's that one caller that talks about the Arabs and how the Arabs are the most, the preeminent threat for the people that they call sub-Saharan, and those things that you see on a job application, and that's how you have to designate or recognize yourself when it comes to being Black or African American, sub-Saharan. And that's not what, those aren't the people who actually were the original people in that area. And just the person who is an Arab is just like a person who is like Black and white. The Arab people who are in power over in what they call the Middle East, the white Arab people, they are of the Jacobian lineage. Jacobian. And in the Holy Quran, Jacob's name is Yaqub. That is the Islamic name for Jacob. And we know about the story of Jacob in the Bible. He's the one that wrestled with the angel. And the angel asked him, why are you bothering me, pretty much? And, he wanted his name changed. And his name was changed to Israel. Henceforth, the state of Israel, who has claimed what they have claimed. What I'm saying is this. Is if you, as Ms. Bryant said, if you're going to tell it all, right? Mm-hmm. So the people who are in power over there, and before I go, Wesley Clark stated that they had an agenda in what is called the Middle East to take out, I think, 7 nations: Syria, Lebanon, Iraq,
Iran.
Which Iran is probably the last man standing. I don't know if they're going after Egypt or Saudi Arabia, but
it would really depend on
Yemen.
Yeah, Yemen. Yemen right now is having a civil war. It would really depend
and
on
a proxy war because of America. And
it's proxy, not just America, it's also Iran too. So Iran is part of that, and then Saudi Arabia, and I know one group is the Houthis, but what I was trying to get to with John is that it doesn't really matter sometimes what the ethnicity is. It is what is being done.
And why? And you know why? The essence of it, it's all about white supremacy, white dominance. And when that caller calls in, he tells you all, he tries to lead you in, to his thinking. And
everybody does. Everybody does.
No, that's not me. I'm providing my opinion, and my opinion.
But you want me to see and embrace your truth, right?
No.
Okay.
I don't
have to.
Okay. We state what we are taught, and then that's that. As the most honorable Elijah Muhammad says, you can take it or you can let it alone. That's not up to me. I'm providing you something that you may not be aware of, you may not be taking into consideration, as opposed to the prevailing mentality that has been imposed on the entirety of the population of the planet Earth.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. 414-444-5250. And again, we're just talking about the state of the race. And I'll give you some more polling numbers. Caller, welcome to the program.
Good morning, Keith. This is John. How you doing?
Mm-hmm.
Hello?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Israel did not ask for a name change. The angel gave it to him. Angel was just wrestling. He wasn't expecting a wrestling match. Jacob. Abraham,
well,
I also have to remember.
do we have
Abraham,
to,
Isaac, Jacob. Right, Jacob.
Can we?
Go ahead.
No, it's like I understand. And bring your radio down or bring the volume down on your phone a little bit.
Oh, sorry.
But
Okay,
no,
hold
man,
on.
that is the point I was making, was that the players all have a strategic interest.
Yes,
you know, when people
correct.
are saying that they're going in there based on, I hate a group of people, you might hate the group of people, but you love the land that they're on. And so what you're going to do is, that's where, when you talk about one of the things when they do ethnic cleansing, is that you move the people off the land, right? And how do you do that? You can force them, make them move, or you can kill them. But you want the land that they're on. And it just as a pretense, it might be religion, it might be ethnicity, it might
like
be.
you're saying about Yugoslavia, right?
Right. No, what I'm saying, and then when you think about America and Russia and China, for them, it's not based on ethnicity, it's based on strategic interest. You have a resource there. You geographically strategic to the trade route. You know, that I always say this. Palestine was like backwater back in the day. I'm talking about during the time. And then when Rome saw that as a trade route, right? And also as a military route where they could get into Egypt, of course, then it becomes important. They could care less about the ethnicity of the people there. They weren't Roman, so they could care less. It was about who was on the land. And that's where, so when we get into the whole.
Romans were not about ethnicity, right?
Right.
Romans were not about ethnicity.
So I understand there are ethnic people involved in it, but always have to look at what the bottom line is.
It was irrelevant. Yeah, they weren't concerned about ethnicity.
Right.
The Romans didn't care about ethnicity.
Right, because we could talk about, when you talked about those, what the group you talk about is the Arabs who go in, but then there are other people who are non-Arab in African countries.
That's the whole point of what I was saying. And it's not just sub-Saharan Africa. It's all of North Africa, because the Arabs don't have anything to do south of Uganda. It's the whole of North Africa.
But what's the conflict in Nigeria? What is the conflict for control?
That's between northern Muslims and southern Christians.
And southern Christians, exactly.
Yeah, southern
Christians. But it's also
Muslims.
about who will control the oil resources in Nigeria.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah, you're right on. You're right on, because
I mean, people.
That's the.
What did they say?
Stuff.
The skin don't make kin. That you have people who could be maybe more ethnically linked than someone else, but if there's
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go.
Like you guys were talking earlier about the dollar, the drop of blood issue. It's the complete reverse over there. A drop of genes, like my great-granddad, my great-granddad's great-granddad, and his great-granddad's great-granddad was a white Arab from Arabia. Now he took a Nubian wife. Now that boy is Arab, even though he's 50-50 Arab and 50-50 Nubian. Then he takes another Nubian wife, or a slave or a concubine.
So let's just talk about why that's important in the family. And certainly in most cultures, it is the man who controls the resources, right? Usually, is males who control resources.
Arab society, especially.
Oh no, in even Jewish society, that whole issue there. Let's get back. No, hold on. Let's go back. I'll go back because I go back to Ishmael and Isaac, right?
Yes,
the question was, who gets the inheritance? And you can correct me on this.
I meant more the identity. I'm sorry. I meant more the identity. With Arabs, it's the whole identity thing. Whereas Jews, you're right. I mean, argue with you.
And no, the point I was going to make is who your daddy is or who your daddy was determine what your inheritance was. Right?
Yes, I get that part. Correct.
Okay. It wasn't your mama. No, your mama might say that this gives you kinship in the clan.
As far as I know, you're right.
Yeah, I mean, but it was your daddy. So when the issue right there between Isaac and Ishmael and the descendants of Isaac and Ishmael had everything to do with inheritance. You know, who gets, that's why it didn't matter who your mama was. So when you look at, who was it? I'm trying to think the person had all the wives. Jacob had at least two.
He had four.
Yeah, and then the concubines.
I'm not sure.
Because remember when they talked about his sons and how his sons were born, some were born to concubines, some was born to wives.
Two concubines and two wives.
Right. It didn't matter.
Two concubines.
Right. It didn't matter who, because Hagar was a concubine.
Yeah.
But she had the eldest son.
Abraham's. Yeah, that was Abraham's second. Yeah.
Right.
Abraham's.
And she had the eldest son. And she got into trouble because Sarah was kind of cool with it. But then Sarah had a baby, but then she was going around bragging about what her son would get.
Jealous.
Yeah, and so Sarah got jealous. Exactly.
Yes.
So I'm just saying that when you look at the whole inheritance, but it all comes down matter, material, resources, land. That's what we fight about. Our biggest fights is over money, right?
Okay, you're right on one level, because we have to breathe. We need to have food and so forth and so on. So then on the other hand, as you say here all the time, now I don't know where you fit in what you just said with the racism here, because it sounds like you're very tuned into aggression against you here. Am I correct? I mean, is there a difference? Maybe there's something I never asked you for. Is there a difference between what you said generically and now you here?
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know if it's a stylistic question or is it it is substantively the same. Marginalization doesn't really matter if you're marginalized. You know what I'm saying?
There you go. That's
that. I would say that how it is executed might be different depending on where you are. I was watching, and we hadn't talked about it. In England, there was a young man, I'm assuming of Arab descent, who was born in England, went in and stabbed a bunch of school children, right?
Recently?
Yes. And so the alt-right said that he was a Muslim immigrant who came. He was not. And they've been having riots by the alt-right attacking immigrants. There was a particular hotel that some of these asylum folks were in. They tried to burn the hotel down. And so what I'm saying is, and then one of the persons said that they saw the N-word, that someone had put it in. In Europe right now, there is a stream of folks who are very hostile to folks. And tell me, I think this is how it works. So when you look, we're looking at the Olympics now. So when you look at France, right? Mm-hmm. France has a significant number of people of African descent.
Correct. Yeah, from the Commonwealth.
Right, because of where France colonized. Those folks in effect,
like the British.
Right, when they have like a de facto citizenship because of the colonization, depending on how they extend citizenship. But then they can move to France. So you look at
very
England.
Similar to the British Commonwealth.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so you have people from
like
the Caribbean.
Like a Puerto Rican coming here, kind of, sort of, like a Melanesian coming here, a Micronesian coming here.
Right.
Very similar.
Because Puerto Ricans are U.S. citizens.
Yeah. Not quite exactly like Puerto Rico, more like Micronesia, Melanesia, American Samoa.
Something
like
the
that.
protectorates,
like that.
Right? What we call protectorates.
Similar.
So I'm just saying that when we look at the ethnic piece of it, we really emphasize it so much because we've always had ethnic hostilities, right? It's always been there. One of the reasons why the Jewish people ended up leaving Egypt was because, and I tell people the modern thing was they were growing. Their population was growing faster than the Egyptian population. And where they were situated near that Sinai area, northern part of Egypt, Egyptians are worried about the Philistines and others aligning themselves with the Jewish people. And they would
heard that part.
Oh yeah, it's in the Bible.
The Philistines were going to unify with the Jews.
Right. Because at that point,
the Egyptians were scared of they call them the peoples of the sea.
Exactly.
I never heard the unity thing.
They didn't. That was the fear.
But
it didn't happen because of hostilities they had the Philistine, and obviously later on we go and we find out that becomes like one of their ancient enemies. But that was the fear. And so then they said, first of all, they did genocide. Killed the firstborn male, killed the seed, killed the people.
Right.
And then it got to the point. So what I'm saying, it became a material thing, a religion. Now we look at it from the religious, spiritual thing.
Is it ever non-material? I'm sincerely asking you. Is it ever non-material or pure race?
Be very rare. There's always some material piece in our conflict.
That's a Marxist analysis, or would you say you're not using a Marxist analysis? Would you say this is just common sense in your own mind?
I'm just
sincerely asking you. I have no accusation.
I'm just going, and I'm being anecdotal here. But if you notice this, like when my good brother from Colorado was saying that the indigenous people and Hispanic indigenous people have a different feeling about racism. I'm going, no, that's not the case. Now
we were different. The Native Americans that are not Hispanic versus the Hispanic ones.
No,
What you
the
saying?
Hispanic ones would be the people I'm
Portuguese.
talking about, indigenous people who would be part of what is Mexico, what was part of California, and then that was absorbed. California certainly was absorbed into the United States. So
the Southwest.
right.
Okay.
So when you look at it, you have indigenous people who are watching people walk on their ancient lands.
Correct.
An ancient land that they did not give up freely. Right?
Yes.
And then
Correct.
for us, we are people who were brought here against our will to work that land for free. And what we have a sense, because there's a tunnel vision here, you might have the same thing with Jewish people, right? They'll talk about ghettos, they'll talk about all the programs and everything. Talk to Latino people in Texas and tell them, because Texas was, first of all, the last state of the Confederacy to end slavery, right?
To end it, you said like June 19th. Is that what you're talking about?
No. Yeah, well, yeah, they were still.
I'm mixed up.
Yeah, they were the last state. They were still fighting when other states had stopped.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and so when you look at it, it's like, okay. I was talking to a brother. He was Puerto Rican, and he was saying, you know, he started talking about racism. Mm-hmm. I'm sitting over there thinking, like, dude, you Puerto Rican.
Did you say he was a dark, or does it matter? Did you say he was a
no? He was
black.
He probably had. He wasn't. He didn't look like me, Puerto Rican.
Okay.
He looked more indigenous, and he got to talking, and he was saying, talking about racism, and then I had to think back to Cesar Chavez, and then I had to think back in states like Texas where they had signs up, whites only. That would be exclusionary of Mexicans or people of Mexican descent or people who were in Texas.
In America, say no Jews, no blacks, no dogs, that kind of stuff.
Right.
It was all over the place.
Where was it? No Irish. No Irish need to apply.
Right. You see them, no Chinese, no dogs,
Chinese.
no Jews, no blacks, no
Chinese. We came up with the Chinese Exclusion Act.
Yes, correct.
You know, so what I'm saying is,
I mean, you're correct. Yeah.
And so what the fear is right now, I'm gonna get here's my what is it? Conspiracy with a Q. I have been of the opinion that the abortion issue is less about morality, because every time they try to make a moral argument against it, there's a medical reason for it. Okay?
Can you explain that? Can you say that again?
I said that every time they try to make a moral reason, for example, they would say that
for opposition? You mean for opposition to abortion
to opposition for abortion.
Okay.
They would say that abortion is murder. The Bible says abortion is murder. The Bible doesn't mention
abortion.
The
Bible does not say that.
Exactly. The Bible does not say that it's murder.
Say it's murder, because it's that little fight with the eye for an eye. It's not until it's okay, let me try to recite it. It's not until she loses her it's not until she loses her life is it murder. If she only loses baby, it's the financial settlement.
Right. And then
just think of that. If she only loses the fruit, but she lives, it's only a financial settlement with her and the judges, because of human capital. It's like that you just invested your family's human capital in it. Now you're losing financial, meaning you lost time and space, but you didn't lose a separate life.
The
right wingers hate that. The right wingers cannot handle that.
Here's a little known piece in the law. Children are considered property of the state.
And you're talking in general and worldwide?
No, in the United States, most states, children are considered part of the state.
Where is this? What are you talking about?
I was reading. I'll pull it up. It was in Arizona. I pulled it up. What they say is
this a right wing group or what?
No. This is a practice of law. This gives the state the power to have child protective service, where now the state can step in and say, because that kid is considered not property like we think of property, but that the state I have to get the correct term right. That because it's about prodigy, is about the future, and so
is this new? Is this a new law?
No. This is what's given the state the power to come in if you have a child in an abusive situation, to step in and take your child.
Oh, okay.
Right? Because society has a more compelling interest for its future to make sure that child survives. Exactly.
Right.
And so what
person next door, are they abused because they're doing all-star wrestling, or are they abused because it's actual abuse? Right. When do you intervene?
And so, and now again, the parent has due rights.
If you often hear a child being a ward of the state,
yes,
once something transpires.
Yes.
So what you're saying is, in essence, as long as you raise them properly, they are yet a ward of the state, but it's not until the state actually enacts.
Right.
It's right.
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 And then the school thing, compulsory education, means that we have the compelling interest in making sure you don't leave your kid at home washing clothes and stuff.
And so then the Amish took it to court. Mm-hmm. And so now compulsory education is usually 12th grade.
Or you talk about my story. Okay.
No, it's usually 12th grade, but with the Amish, it can be the 8th grade because it's for religious reasons. But at the minimum, it has to be 8th grade. You know, so we take that into account, but those laws that we put into place, we put it, and look, there's been some bad laws with good intentions that have been put into place, but it's always this, what is the benefit of this to the general society? I mean, that's how it just works. And then how do we, because once we formed as a mutually benefiting society, because that's what we are, right? Then there has to be, that's why you come together to, you know, form a company, or you come together to form a group. It's mutually benefiting. Okay.
I'm glad you said it that way. That's really important.
Right, because in America, so when you and I was arguing about Social Security, you know, we have argued about that in the past, or we're doing certain social programs. There is a community benefit from us putting these.
The question is, how do you get there? The question is, how do you get there, and whether you're picking the right methodology to raise your funds, whether you think a steeper tax actually brings in more money or a flatter tax brings in more money, the dynamic scoring versus the static.
Now, how you finance,
that's a real question.
How you finance it is really interesting. In Milwaukee, we were known as sewer socialists.
Yeah,
Milwaukee had a very vibrant economic.
Yeah, we were business friendly and labor friendly.
Right.
Both, right? Isn't that pretty much
and we could afford the socialism. We could afford the best park system in the country. You know, we could afford things like the visiting nurses and up to a child is 5.
Military powerhouse of the world, the arsenal of democracy.
So we could fuel the socialism.
Number 10 in America.
Right.
The number 10. I remember as a little kid, number 10 in population. I was so proud of this, but we take it for granted. And now we're like number 50 or whatever.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's depopulation. Hey, John, let me get the next call. Appreciate you, man.
Yeah.
All right.
Too. Thank you. Bye-bye. Have fun.
Yeah, you too. Uh-oh. Let me try again. Next caller. I still got John.
This is Rick. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Why you yelling? No, I can hear you, man. You yelling at me? What I do to you, man? What's happening?
I didn't mean to yell at you, man.
No, you were trying to be heard. No, you good. You're good.
I was just, I'm experienced in talk radio. I've been a caller on various shows in America when I lived in D.C. and also here from Germany.
Okay.
I've been doing this for almost 32 years.
Okay.
And I would just like to add to your conversation today by saying there is secular modern law, and it would behoove your listeners to realize that we don't live in biblical law there in America or here in Europe today. I was a product of a broken home, and I got to participate in the foster care system with my sister and brother. It's incredible when you research the Bible and you realize that there was law and religious belief and secular law before the Hebrews and probably before the Egyptians.
Mm-hmm.
I also would like to say in closing, ain't no need to worry what the night is going to bring. It'll be all over by 2060.
2060.
I'm done, man.
No, before you go, let me. You know, it's interesting. Europe is becoming more and more secular. America is too. And you see now, and it's interesting when they talk about the state of Israel. The state of Israel is a supposedly secular nation. Obviously, the religious folks have an enormous amount of influence and power, but it really is. And this is the danger. And this is why we're going to have to talk about Project 2025, because white Christian nationalism is real. It's powerful. I've
been hearing a lot of backpedaling on that, though. A lot of people, they're starting to back away from that.
Okay. They still created it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, in terms of this is where we're moving. The other thing is, when the children of Israel was in, they were just a group of people. They were nomadic people, just a clan of people who had gotten someplace and had settled. They weren't a nation. And it took them a while to form them being a nation. And so when you look at the whole thing, the Bible was, because we look at the Bible from a religious perspective, the Bible for them, what they call the Bible, the Torah, the Talmud, that was from a governing perspective. And I think people need to know the difference. And we say, oh, it's because they were so spiritual. No. It's how you manage. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. That's a business dispute. And so now we have a prohibition in you coming in lying, especially when it comes to business, on your neighbor, right? I mean, that's when you read it. So what we look at it as is, the golden rule and all these things. And even when you look at, I think, Leviticus and Deuteronomy, where they have the Leviticus code, those 613 things you can't do, scholars believe that was formed during the Babylonian captivity because their literacy rate wasn't that high. It wasn't until the Babylonian captivity that their literacy rate, where people could actually read and write and then codify what now became their Talmud, what became their Torah, which became their practicing thing. So I agree with you. It's a lie from the pits of hell when people say that America was formed as a Christian nation. That is a lie. As a matter of fact, deity is only referred to once, and that all those documents, they weren't talking about God, right? Because it wasn't about God.
It was about government.
It was about government, and it's about money, right?
Yes, sir.
There you go, man. All right, man. Take care. Always appreciate it. Thank you for listening in Germany. I appreciate that, man. All right, you're listening to Community Voice. We're up on the last break of the program. We'll be right back.
Get your tickets now to the Milwaukee Gala that empowers communities and changes lives.
Brian, Debo, thank you. Carvey, thank you. Callers, we thank you. The good Lord willing, Creek don't rise. Hope to talk to everybody tomorrow. And as always, go from this place in peace.